All right. Okay. How you doing, folks? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report, along with Ross Benjamin of rbwins.com for a Hump Day, Wednesday, December 2nd. Hopefully everybody's having yourself a good start to your day. How you doing today, Ross?
I'm doing great, Ron. 2-0 day in college basketball yesterday. Basketball yesterday,
New
and
sport there?
that makes me 7-2 on the season. So things are going well in college basketball. You know, we got an NFL game tonight. I don't think either one of us are going to touch, but we're going to talk about it. And then a lot of good football games coming up this week that we could discuss.
Yeah, that's you know what? I watched a bit of that Michigan State and Duke game last night. A little like I told my wife last night, I said it's not used to seeing Michigan State Duke on December 1st. That's like
Yeah.
almost like a March Madness type matchup, right? But you get these interconference games in the early start of college basketball. But 7-2 to start the season,
Yeah.
3-0 yesterday,
2-0. 2-0
2-0.
yesterday.
Yeah.
2-1 the day before. College basketball 10-star top plays are 3-0 this year, going back to last year, 8-0 in the last 8. So, I crunch numbers pretty well in college basketball. And as I alluded to off air to you, Ron, I'm not always on these primetime games, meaning
Yep.
the games that are high profile on ESPN. I go after sometimes some low profile games that don't garner a lot of national attention. And
Yep.
it's only human nature, right, Ron? I mean, I got all the respect in the world for the bookmakers like you do. But it's only human nature. They're not going to pay attention to games that don't garner a lot of action as much as they will, like what you just touched upon, a Michigan State Duke game, for example, that's on national TV and it's a high profile game. I mean, an example of such, yesterday I had Mississippi Valley State and Grand Canyon under 161, and the game fell at 137.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah. And then my other play, I did have a couple, which you would call power teams. I had USC plus 3.5 over BYU, and they won the game outright by 25. So it's been a good start, Ron.
Yeah, great start for sure. And while we're on it, if people want to get today's plays, where can they get them?
They can get them at rbwins.com. My college basketball plays are up right now. That's rbwins.com. You'll see a 3-game package that's up for sale. First tip goes at 5 p.m. Eastern time, Ron.
Awesome. All right. So quiet day yesterday here. Yesterday was a management day here, technical management day, getting all the, what's happening is with all these college football games, on a Tuesday, you start seeing that the COVID numbers come in, some games getting canceled. So basically on a Tuesday here, we're trying to get all the Raymond Report matchups up. And now they are up here at ATS stats.com. So if folks are interested in the Rain Report, we have a free report, which you can get here at the website. All you got to do is go to the website. You'll see a picture of Kyler Murray. Just click on that on the right-hand column, or go to the menu bar at the top, go to NFL, college football, go to free Rain Report, and you can get all the matchups, tip sheets, all for free on the website. And obviously, there's a premium section. If you're interested in the full Rain Report, you can get that at atsstats.com. All right, Ross, you know what? Maybe you would know this. I wanted to do this before we went on air. Has there ever been a Wednesday football game in the NFL?
I don't think so, Ron. If there has been, it hasn't been in our lifetime. Let's put it that way. I mean, you might go back to the beginning stages of the NFL for whatever reason, but no, I don't believe so, buddy. I take that back. I do take that back. There was a Wednesday game to open the season, and I want to say it was the Giants in San Francisco. And the Giants at that time were the defending world champions. They had defeated the New England Patriots, the undefeated New England Patriots the year before. And because the presidential debate that year was on a Thursday night, they switched it to a Wednesday evening. So I stand corrected, Ron.
Okay.
It had to be, I think, 2000, if I'm not mistaken.
See,
So
I was gonna try to bring it up, but I don't even have the Wednesday tab in my database.
yeah,
Something.
I'm pretty sure that was, if it wasn't 2000, it was 2004, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Alan Miles just said there has been, just not lately, like 2004 or something. So
Yeah,
just
2004. It had to be.
well,
Yep.
awesome. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. Again, folks, we always encourage people who are watching the Rain Report along with Ross Benjamin here on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions you'd like to ask on the upcoming weekend, college football or the NFL, please do so by going in the chat box and just posting some questions. All right, Ross, let's take a look at that Wednesday, that hump day game today. We'll use the Rain Report. Again, like you said, I'm not touching this game. It's just now there's word that Ingram and Dobbins aren't playing today.
Yeah.
RG3 is going to play. You know, he hasn't started in a while. It's a bit of a breather for the Steelers. Really, you know, that line, I think it opened up at 1. It was at 3 and 4, and now it's at 10.5.
Yeah.
So, man, when was the last time we saw Steeler Raven games at 10 minus 10.5, right?
Not in recent memory, that's for sure. And, you mentioned the 2 running backs. I mean, initially yesterday, it looked like they were going to play, but they weren't going to practice. And then today I'm reading the report, Ron, they're both listed as doubtful. I will say this about RG3. I think that was a good signing for Baltimore in this respect. You got a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and when you have to go to RG3, Ron, they're very similar in style, right?
Yep.
Now, Lamar Jackson's been terrific. He was the MVP last year. I'm not saying Robert Griffin is going to be in that category, but what I am saying is you don't have to, as you as a coach would know this, you don't really have to change your offensive philosophy when you go from Lamar to RG3, because they're similar in style, like I just touched upon. So.
Yeah, and if the OC for the Ravens, I'm sure he sat down with RG3 and the other backup quarterback for today and said, okay, give me your top plays, and this is what we're going to rep in practice. This is what we're going to do. And you'll probably cut the playbook in half for this game here. So, it's really tough to handicap this game because we don't know. You need to go in the game to see what works, right? Like, because what he might feel comfortable, it might be, always a 2-yard loss or something, right? Or they're getting sacked or, Steelers.
It's always, you want to put your players in position to succeed. And you do that by knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are, right, Ron?
Oh, absolutely.
You would know that as a coach. And I will say this, their 3rd string running back, Gus Edwards, isn't bad. Yep. Okay, so you're not looking at a huge drop-off there. But we'll see. I mean, going against Pittsburgh's defense shorthanded is a monumental task.
Yeah, and the thing is, in coaching these type of games, once you got something that works, there's no saying keep running until they stop it, right? Yep, exactly. So they might find, but not too many people has found a weakness in that Steelers defense this year. So it could be a long day for the Ravens. Now, looking at our forecast, this is just the analytics here, taking these numbers. And it's based only on 11 previous games. So not a lot of data to, follow through on. 28-19 seems like a reasonable score when you look at it that way. I don't know where they're going to get 19 points, but you never know. Turnover, special teams. But the one thing I've noticed with the Ravens, and if you just go look at their last few games, they're not used to being a team that's not winning in November, December of late. No. Coming off that loss to the Titans, a loss to the Patriots, and the Patriots, they're having their own issues this year. So that tells you a lot about the Ravens situation right now. And then, 24-10 against the Colts, a nice win. That a game they should have won against the Steelers, I thought, 28-24, but Steelers showed the flexibility of their muscle and came out ahead. But and this game here was a backdoor cover for the Eagles. I remember that game. But the Ravens right now, they're in a bit of trouble when you look at their situation. Like, they might not even make the playoffs.
No, they're right now at the season that we're in today, Ron, they wouldn't. So one thing to keep in mind too, and I know they're shorthanded tonight, but Ron mentioned they lost at New England. Going into that New England game, since the start of last season, I think they were like 11-1 in regular season away games. So they've been very good on the road. Of course, they lost that game, so now they're 11-2, and I think they're, if I'm not mistaken, 4-1 on the road this year, Ron. I know they've lost 3 games at home. So
Yep. 4-1 on the road.
right. So that was their first loss on the road this year. Was that last game against New England, and that was in a torrential downpour. I don't know if you want to make an excuse for them because of that, because both teams had to play under those conditions. But in any event, folks, here's what you got to ask yourself a question. And Ron knows how I feel about this. And I can't speak for him, but I think he agrees
Yep.
because he's so particular in when he puts a play out. Is if you took this game and put it on the Sunday board with 13 other games, would you use it? Or are you just using it because it's the only game on the board tonight? If you want to be successful, if you aren't going to use this game on a Sunday in a big board, you're using it only because it's the only game on the board, that's not a good way to go. So if you're an action junkie, you're not going to make a lot of money, if any money at all, when it comes to sports betting. And this borders, without being disrespectful to anybody, Ron, this borders on using this game as being an action junkie. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the one who probably be playing the most is the fantasy guys, right?
Yeah.
Like with the
That's
showdown.
okay. That's
Yeah,
okay. The
absolutely.
big ragu. Get the big ragu. I want to know his opinions.
Yeah, he's all over it. Actually, Ragu had a good weekend too, along with Chip. Ragu went no.
Big ragu. He's well-rounded, man, in a lot of ways.
He's a big dude.
He likes that pasta, baby. And 3-0 ATS with his picks, and then his fantasy picks, Ron, really good too, right? You were saying
absolutely.
He's very sharp with those. So
yeah,
you should tune in to Ron and the Big Ragu. You could learn a lot when it comes to fantasy, that's for sure.
Yeah, he got pretty excited there. I think it was last week going into the 4:00 games. He was like tied for first on one of the cards. It was like the payout was like 10,000 or something like that. So he was pretty excited about that. But the thing with fantasy though, 3 plays later you can be down. Minus,
no doubt somebody gets hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what, Ron? I'm sorry to interject like that, but before I lose my train of thought, people say, "Well, you do this every day. Why aren't you doing fantasy either?" It's a whole different thing, right, Ron? Oh. I mean, it's a whole different way to look at things. Personally, I don't care who's on both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? Because it's all reflected in the line. I mean, very seldom are you ever going to hear me mention, I like a game because X player is going to be the difference in this game. I don't do that, so guys like the Big Ragu, they know who's available every game, and they're looking at the matchups and who they're facing. Certain teams don't do well against tight ends, defenses, I should say. Buffalo's a good example of that, Ron. They're a play against in fantasy for the opposing tight end. So, it's a whole different entity, correct, Ron? I mean, do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I compare it to, I tell people sports betting is like Coke or Pepsi, and fantasy sports like Red Bull. There's so much information. Like, how we analyze a team on, their situations. Imagine doing that same type of homework with one player on one team, and there's like 10 or 12 players you got to go through. That's 12 times the work on those same type of fundamentals that you use in sports betting that you're using in fantasy. But fantasy is, you really need some type of computer assistant.
Yes, I agree, Ron. I agree. And in FanDuel and DraftKings last year, they came out that somebody disclosed the fact, who was in the inside there, that 90% of the money paid out goes to 10% of the people.
Yeah.
So it's a very top heavy industry, and it goes hand in hand to what you just said, Ron. I can guarantee out of those 10%, 9.5% have some type of computer software that helps them along when it comes to making their fantasy picks daily.
Oh, absolutely. And then you get these guys who have good computer programs where they go into a contest with 150 selections, but that's because they've built up a bankroll and they've done very well. And so they might start off with $100,000 bankroll, and to them entering entering 150 lineup at say a $10 card, it's like, $15,000. That's normal for them. That'd be like $100 better in sports betting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
it's and this is why for me, if you play these type of things, and if you're not a hard like I say it all the time, I'm not a hardcore guy. I'm a recreational fantasy guy. My thing
Yeah.
is sports betting. But if I do play, I'll try to get where there's a 3-game limit, so I don't get put into a situation where I'm up against a guy who's got or 2, 3 guys who's got 150 card lineup,
Yeah.
and then you gotta.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Multi-entry, it's called. Yeah.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
got a lot of respect for these guys who do well in fantasy, because I do know, just from dabbling in once in a while, to do it right, you have to put a lot of work into it,
Oh,
and you have
absolutely.
to spend some money on software. You know what I mean, Ron? So it's no mistake why it's such a top heavy industry, meaning, again, going back to 90% of the money gets paid out to just 10% of the people.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some college football games this weekend, Ross. We're going to take a quick look at some of the line moves in college football and the NFL, and
Okay.
just give me your thoughts on these. I won't, there's so many of them, so I'm just gonna. Well, actually, there's not that many, but just a quick thought on some of the moves here. Nebraska, Purdue. Now Purdue opened up -2. It's at 1.5, so it does favor, and the move favors Nebraska. I've watched Purdue. Okay team. A bit like Northwestern, but Northwestern's defense a bit better. Nebraska, man, it's just I look at this team; they got so much potential, and
Yeah.
it's just they're so inconsistent, and it boils down to that quarterback situation.
Yeah.
When you get McCaffrey in there, it's a total different offense, and when you get Martinez in there, it's a total run oriented, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I would go with McCaffrey because your team isn't going anywhere now. I know there's a degree of respect for Martinez because he's been there and grinded it out for 4 years there. Uh, Purdue coming off that double-digit favorite upset loss against Rutgers at home, a game they led by 10 at the half. In Nebraska, I mean, they beat Penn State, but they got outgained by over 200 yards in that game. I would have a small lean toward Purdue at this juncture.
Kent State taking on Miami, Ohio. Looks like the line opened at 3.5, and it's now 1.5 for Kent
Yeah.
State. The one thing with the MAC, and I've noticed that the last 3 weeks, and saw Buffalo, the running back for Buffalo, rack up
Yeah.
all those record yards. And as a coach, now I'm going to look at this with my coach's glasses. The thing that really stood out for me was the lack of fundamentals of tackling in that league. It's not just one
Yeah.
team. It looks like it's like 3, 4 of them. And when I saw that Buffalo record of the running back, and the first thing that came to my mind is like, I'm not surprised. Like I've
Yeah.
watched those games, and nobody tackles in that league in the MAC. It's really like you watch even like say a Big Ten game compared to a MAC. The SEC is a different animal. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
SEC is just a different. That's almost pro. But I look at a MAC. Go watch a MAC game on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night when they're showing those games. The missed tackles is just alarming as a coach. If I'm a defense coordinator, I'm probably balder because I've lost all my hair from pulling it out.
Yeah.
It's just
It's a high scoring, entertaining league. Let's put it that way. I mean, you mentioned that Buffalo game last week for Kent State. They lost that game 70-41. So
yeah,
even in a loss, they put up 41 points. In the running back from Buffalo, Patterson, that Ron's alluding to, 8 touchdowns and 402 yards rushing.
wow.
You'd never see that in a Power Five conference, and I think that's reflective of the line here, Ron. I think people are looking at what Kent State did last week and the points and yards they allowed, and that's fresh in their memory, and we're seeing that line move off the top of my head.
Yeah. Boston College is going to take on Virginia. Little line move there favoring the Cavaliers. Boston College, you know what? I've bet them a few times this year. They've been pretty good to me when I do take them. They're pretty decent team. Obviously, they a little bit overmatched against Notre Dame, but they
Yeah.
can hold their own.
Yeah, I mean, they were overmatched against Notre Dame, but they didn't get blown out of the water either. I think
True.
they only lost by 14 or so.
Yeah.
Having said that, they lost their starting quarterback last week, Ron. So I'm not sure what his status is going into this game. So I would double check uh, to see what his status is, and if he's not going to play, who their backup is, if he has any experience. because I'm looking at this line right now, Virginia -6, and it looks to me like it's reflective of him not playing, but
Yeah.
just something to keep an eye on.
Okay. Georgia Tech taking on NC State. Now, NC State, did you watch? I don't know if you saw that ending of that Syracuse game, man. Hey,
Yeah,
that
I know.
happens,
What a
right?
debacle. Yeah, what a
Yeah, that
debacle.
happened.
Yeah.
It just, what came to my mind, the Fab, Weber, in that,
Yes.
calling
Yeah.
timeout when, different sport, but, sometimes you get so pumped up in the adrenaline during a game, you lose track. Even Tom Brady lost track of how many downs he had this year in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. It's
was,
very, I felt bad for the kid, Rex Culpepper, the quarterback, senior. He's overcame cancer. He finally gets his opportunity here. And again, as Ron touched upon, and Ron's coached at a high level in Canada, knows that that happens on
yep.
occasion. And, yeah, you get caught up in the moment and you lose track of what down it is.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Penn State taking on Rutgers. Penn State finally got that big win against Michigan last weekend. Now they're coming in this game now as an 11.5-point favorite against Rutgers. Rutgers, they should have beaten Michigan. They went to overtime there.
Yep.
They've been competitive the last couple of weeks. Penn State, now they got that first win. Maybe it is something to build off that Michigan win, but that Michigan team is just not the same right now.
Yeah, Rutgers, nice win last week, coming off that win as a double-digit underdog where they overcame that 10-point deficit. Penn State is a team right now, it's hard to gauge. I mean, they've lost some games. They've outgained their opponents by a wide margin. They laid an egg against Illinois at home. They win last week against Michigan handily. Rutgers, now they're playing a Rutgers team who's a double-digit home underdog in this game, and the line has moved from 10 to 11.5. I don't have an opinion on why that line move is, Ron, right now, and I don't have an opinion on the game as we speak.
Now, this game is very interesting. We've been talking about
Yeah.
this game for about 5 weeks. Remember, we said this, when Liberty was on that great run, and then they lost to, was it NC State, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know what? I still like Liberty in this spot. I know Coastal Carolina has been, having a great season. But, I think Liberty is worth a look here at 10.5.
Did that line go up to 10.5? Because when I looked at it late last night, it was still hovered around 7.
Yeah, I'm seeing 10.5 at some places.
All right, so that's a big move.
Yeah, it is.
To me, that's a sharp move because when I looked at the money yesterday, it looked like some sharp money was going on Coastal Carolina based on the amount of wagers and the money bet. So that to me looks like an extremely sharp move. And I know Chip has been scratching his head. Chip Chirimba is one of our cohorts here at ATSStats.com. He's been scratching his head because he didn't understand why Liberty was even a 7-point dog. He probably has a deep cut in his head right now from scratching it so hard now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Liberty's been very competitive all season long, and they've faced some higher name programs.
Yeah. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech. They blew Syracuse out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will about Syracuse, but they're still an ACC team. And then they were a missed field goal with no time left on the clock away from beating North Carolina State as well on the road. So they're battle tested, Ron.
Yeah. Texas taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. Man, how would you like to be Tom Herman right now? You're like reading every newspaper. You're fired from the media already.
Yeah, it's almost like a coach in limbo right now, lame duck coach. Because
dead man walking.
Here's the big thing, Ron. Not only hasn't they've raised the status of Texas football. They're stuck in mediocrity for the most part. I guess mediocrity. I mean, when you're a top 25 team throughout the course of the year at one time or another, I wouldn't consider that mediocrity. But by Texas standards, when they brought Tom Herman aboard after his success at Houston, they were expecting Texas to contend for a Big 12 title every year and be in major bowl games. And that hasn't transpired. And the biggest, you mentioned it last week, his biggest fault right now is he's losing the recruiting battle in the state of Texas, which is a football hotbed for high school.
Oh, hey, it's the same in Canada, anywhere. To me, the biggest thing is you want to keep your 5 stars, your 4-star players, your studs at home, and community. I'm big on community. And when you play, like, I coach a lot of high school kids, and when I see these kids, they can go to Ottawa U or Carleton, that makes me happy, because I know their family will be able to see them. When somebody goes to another state or another province, there's a lot of travel involved. They can get a little bit homesick. There's no familiarity. I can't say that word 10 times.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. But you know what I'm trying to say. But
yes, I do.
Yeah, it's just that I think by not having to keep the kids from Texas in the state of Texas playing for the Longhorns, because when you think of the state of Texas, well, what's the top football program that comes to mind, right? The Texas Longhorns.
Texas is the biggest brand, right? Yeah. So you're losing the recruiting battle, not only kids going out of state, but within the state of Texas to programs like TCU, Texas A&M, SMU. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, and I think that's what bothers them the most is the alumni and the athletic department is you can't be losing those. We're the biggest brand in the state here. You can't be losing those recruiting battles. At least, the regime before, we weren't losing the recruiting battles. Kids just weren't living up to expectation. Well, that's not the case anymore. So,
yeah,
I don't see his future being very bright with Texas right now.
And you got to ask yourself I have a theory in life, which I've, if you watch your show, I've got many. You got to ask the five. You got to ask the five. You got to ask the five.
Mrs. Raymond will tell you that as well.
Yeah. While she rolls her eyes, right? But you got to ask this question. I call it the 5 whys. Why are the players leaving your state? And then once you get to that first question of why, then ask the second follow-up and the third follow-up. You don't see a lot of kids from Ohio, the state of Ohio leaving Ohio, right? Because I think there's a pride factor of living in the state of Ohio to playing for the Buckeyes. The same thing in Michigan. You want to play for the Wolverines, but they got to bring that pride back to Texas, I think, and the Longhorns. And I've heard a few people saying back in the MAC days, the coach there for North Carolina,
Mac Brown.
He was a great recruiter, and he would sit in your kitchen and he would sell you on the program, and then the players would say, "I'm in, coach." And you got to sell that program. You got to have the program has to have integrity and a lot of pride. And right now, I just don't know if the players in Texas feel like, when they're growing up and they're saying, I want to play for the Longhorns. It's not a good thing if they're growing up in Texas and saying, I want to play for the Sooners or I want to play for
to really. And again, I'm sorry, Ron, if were you done or?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. It's not so much you're losing kids out of the state or to other programs within the state of Texas. You can't lose those 4 and 5-star kids, the highly touted recruits within the state. You can't lose too many of them. You have the brand name where we hired you and are giving you the biggest brand name in the state, let alone one of the biggest brand names in college football. You can't lose those 4 or 5-star kids that within our own state. Yeah, you have to win those battles. And going back to Mac Brown, yes, he was an excellent recruiter. The difference between him and Tom Herman, he was a better recruiter, and he did win a national championship. If you remember, the Vince Young led Texas Longhorns to beat USC. In the national championship game. So, not a very pleasant situation going on right now for the Texas Longhorns football program and specifically for their head coach, Tom Herman.
Yeah, well, remember I said last 2 weeks ago, some prep book had 30 of the top Texas players ranked a 4-star and a 5-star, and only one signed in the state of Texas. Yeah. So
that's exactly what I mean, Ron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And if
you can't. You got to be at least grabbing 10 of those guys if you're
absolutely,
Texas.
Especially and again, you got to ask yourself, why are those players leaving the state, right? Why are they leaving? And you just wonder in the landscape of college sports. Like, look at Kentucky in basketball, right? How many years we've been saying one and done because they look at it as a training camp. I remember last year listening to Doncic for the Dallas Maverick saying, I don't know why. He goes, why do people, like, if you're a really good basketball, he goes, I don't know why you're not going to play in Europe. He goes, go play in Europe in the men's league, and you come back in, 1 year and you're playing in the pros. Yeah. And that's the mindset of a lot of these players have, like, just play 1 or 2 years and that's it, and go sign that contract and get to the pros. So that's a problem. That's a problem too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Luka Doncic makes a good example of that, because if you go to Europe coming out of high school, not only are you going to get paid, it's going to be tax-free and all your living expenses are paid for. It's very lucrative, and it's also garners a lot of attention there. People don't realize how big European basketball is, Ron, so they get a lot of fan support there as well.
Alan Miles has a great point here. He says, sometimes it's just a matter of choice and playing time. I'd rather be a starter at Texas Tech or Baylor than the 3rd or 4th string at Texas or Michigan. You know what? Great point, Alan. I remember my buddy coaches at Laval, and I've known a lot of players. And Laval here is our Ohio State. In Canada, if you just go and Google Laval Rouge et Or, red and gold, it's been one of the top programs in Canada for university football. They've won so many Vanier Cups. But the one thing that the head coach does over there, Glenn Constantine, is that he's loyal to his players. And when he recruits them, he'll have a 5-star stud quarterback, but he won't, like, who signs, but he won't play him until the process of the other guys go through. Like, he promises kids, as soon as you come to Laval, you will be our starter, and no matter who we bring in, they will not bypass you unless you're injured. And that, loyal to a fault. So they recruit really well, but a lot of players want to go play at Laval. And the same thing.
And that may be the case there, Ron, but I mean, for example, getting a 4 or 5-star quarterback to go to Texas in the last few years might have been tough, because Sam Ehlinger was entrenched into that starting quarterback position, and it's none of his fault that Texas hasn't succeeded the way they should have. But at the end of the day, I understand Ellen's point. More times than not, at least if you're a 5-star, 5 stars normally, when you bring a 5-star aboard, Ron, he's normally going to be, if he's not in a starting role right off the bat, he's going to be in a position to make an impact and be a starter. So, I agree with Ellen to a point, but, that goes to me, it goes, if you're a 3-star, okay, and you got to decide between Texas and TCU. I mean, that may be the case, okay? You may be looking at a starter that's entrenched right now, for example, like Ehlinger when he was a sophomore, okay? I'm a quarterback. Well, it looks to me like I'm not going to be able to be in a position to play for 3 years. Would I rather do that and be with a high-profile program, or would I rather be with TCU and have a chance to start right off the bat, or at least be in the mix to start right off the bat? Yeah. I get that, but that's more for the lower star players, the 2 and 3 stars, as opposed to the 4 or 5.
But you know what? I've seen it. I'll tell you a really funny story after this. Players players today do their homework. They go to a program, the visit. The big thing in college now and university, it's always been big, but the visit to the school, when they get official visit to come in and meet the coaches, the players, and the kids today, the players today are more in tune of what's going on and what's at stake. And they ask around, how many offensive linemen do you, if you're an O-line, how many do you have? How many are graduating? And they start doing the math. Yeah. I'll tell you a good, funny story. So when I was at Ottawa U, and Coach Breezy was recruiting a player, and he comes in the office, and the first thing he asked, he didn't ask, what's my program going to be? What's this? He goes, how many uniforms do you guys have? And then Breezy goes, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, how many, like, your uniforms, like how many helmets do you have? Do you have different helmets? Do you have different jerseys? He goes, we got one uniform. That's all you need. He goes, just like Penn State, we just got one. And he goes, Carleton's got 3 or 4, so I think I'm going to go play at Carleton.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
And he goes, All right, I'll drive you there.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
just to show you some of the mindset of some of these players, how they think, right? It's just
Yeah, but Ron, the other thing is too is word of mouth, like you just said. Is it possible the word of mouth is Tom Herman's not a real fun guy to play for?
true.
He's not a very good personality to play for. Look, I mean, Ed Oliver, who now is the starting defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, he opted out early in his senior year because he was had too many head-to-head conflicts with Tom Herman, who was his coach in college in Houston. So I'm not saying I don't know that to be the case, Ron, but that's also a possibility. And again, you sparked an idea from me when you brought that scenario up.
Yeah, no, it is it's a big thing. um you know and Urban Meyer's getting his name is I don't know if Urban Meyer's is the answer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, he's a big name. I love Urban Meyer as a coach. I quote his books and I love his philosophy. But at the end of the day, I always say when you're a coach, you're not their buddies. And
No.
that's where you got to really distinct the difference
Well,
between
there's
being
a
a coach.
fine line there too, right, Ron, between not
Absolutely.
being your buddy and also the kid knowing you care and the kid gaining respect from you. You could be hard line to the point where you lose a kid or you lose several kids on your roster, and that may be the case. Urban Meyer to me would be a good choice because he's used to the high profile. Tom Herman was an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, one of the two at Ohio State. And that's how he got the job at Houston because his units did so well. And then with his success for Houston, he got the job at Texas. But he didn't win any national championships. Urban Meyer succeeded at Utah to start with, went to
Yep.
Florida, succeeded winning national championships there, and then went to Ohio State and won a national championship there. This is a guy who's succeeded in Power 5 conference schools as a head coach and won national championships. Big difference between him and Tom Herman,
Yep. No,
my
I agree.
opinion, anyway.
Yep. No, I agree. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, very. Get your popcorn ready, right? All right, let's take a look at the next game here.
Oh, we're talking about games. I thought we were going to talk about.
Yeah, philosophy of life here. Toledo -9, -10 for the Rockets. Oklahoma State. We got the Cowboys here open up -2. That's going to be an interesting game. My first instinct was TCU. TCU at home because Oklahoma State the last couple of weeks. There's something not clicking on all cylinders for the Cowboys these days.
Well, I mean, they started out so great defensively, and we commented on several occasions how they started the year that they're not your atypical Big 12 defense, but their defense has really faltered, especially when they step up in class. And then Chuba Hubbard didn't play last week because of an injury. He went down. He wasn't playing at 100% prior to that. He had to be removed from the game before that they lost. Their backup came in and did awfully well. Now they're going to be playing TCU at home. Yeah, my first inclination, it jumped right out at me, is to look at TCU in a spot, Ron, because Oklahoma State is not the team that I saw in the early part of the year with my eye test the last few weeks.
Troy, the Trojans opened up 5.5. Now they're down to 4. Syracuse against Notre Dame. Now this is an interesting game. Interesting.
In what respect?
No. Hear me out here. Let me finish this off because the first instinct is Notre Dame's going to kill them, but we all thought that when Syracuse was playing Clemson. Remember?
Yeah.
And look at that game at halftime. How and I'm just wondering. Don't get me wrong. I think Notre Dame is going to win this game.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying, Ron.
But I just don't know if they're 34-point going to win this game.
Well, they're definitely 34 points better. Are they going to be 34 points better on that particular day? Where's their head at?
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming off a win against another nationally ranked opponent last week at North Carolina, a game that a lot of the experts said that North Carolina had a reasonably good chance to upset them. And Notre Dame passed that test with flying colors. Now they're going to take on the lowly orange. So I did tease you at the beginning of that statement, But at the end of the day, you're correct. I mean, in normal circumstances, maybe if this was the opening game of the year, this is a game Notre Dame can win 56-0 now. But how are they going to where is their head going to be at for this game, Ron? Is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say.
exactly. And it's not week 3. Like I think it was like week 3 when they played Clemson, right? And Clemson
Yeah.
was so. Florida taking on Tennessee. This line now favoring the Gators, 17.5. The Gators in the Heisman race. Who do you got in the Heisman race in your book?
Well, I think Kyle Trask, to me, has been the best player in college football, hands down so far. Especially the fact you look at Florida, Ron, in the record. They have one loss against Texas A&M. They're ranked number 6 in the country. They're well alive to get a playoff spot if they could defeat Alabama in the SEC championship game. Having said that, without Kyle Trask, this team is not 6-1 because this is not your ordinary Florida defense that usually is dominant. This defense gives up yards and points, right, Ron?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
For that reason alone, and you look at their offensive stats, it's all generated from their pass game, and he's been an integral part of that. I think right now, in my mind anyway, hands down, he's the best player in college football.
Yeah, and I know Mac Jones is getting a lot of attention right now. I just wonder because he's playing for Alabama and they're just, on offense, they're full of studs.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's just
but you know what, Matt Jones, he would, if I have a second choice, he definitely would be it, Ron. I'm not so sure that Matt Jones won't be a better NFL quarterback than Kyle Trask. Having said that, remember, Matt Jones was a highly recruited prospect coming out of high school. Kyle Trask was a walk-on. Okay. So basically, I mean, shows you the different plights both of those quarterbacks came from. It should be of no surprise that Matt Jones is succeeding right now. It's a big surprise that Kyle Trask has not only elevated himself as a walk-on into a starting quarterback in a highly prominent program like Florida, but he's contending for a Heisman Trophy right now. So it's two different stories there.
I'll tell you one thing. Every time you talk Heisman Trophy, and me being an offensive coach, we always talk about offensive guy. I can tell you people right now who are defense coordinators or defensive guys who play football are like listening now. Is that, oh, here we go again with the offensive guys, but is there any defensive players? And that's what I'm going to ask the people in the chat. In fact, your buddy, the Big Ragu, saying, "Hey boys, how you doing?"
Hey, Big Ragu, what's up, my man?
Yeah, you say just tuning in to say, oh. Alan Miles says Justin Fields, if Ohio State can play 4 more games. Yeah, exactly. It's a bad year for Ohio State in the COVID situation in regards to that. But, I look at who's the last defensive guy to win. Was it Woodson, for Michigan that won the Heisman? I don't know.
Boy, or was it the other kid from Michigan? The one that made the Heisman Trophy. It might have been Woodson. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, and you know what?
When we can't remember who the last Heisman Trophy winner as a defensive player was, it's rare.
Yeah. And, the thing is, offense is it's what offense make highlights. You know what I mean? Like you watch SportsCenter, they're not showing defensive highlights that often. It's, 9 out of 10 times it's an offensive highlight. And that's why all defensive guy, this is a good argument for defensive guy, because I know how defensive guy thinks, right? Always the offense, always them getting the love. And I agree. West Virginia -7. Now this is going to be a good game. Iowa State against West Virginia. Now Iowa State coming off that emotional win last Friday, taking on the Mountaineers, who I believe got a bye last week because of the COVID situation. Yeah. This West Virginia defense, man, I'm telling you, that defensive line, is a pretty good one. I'd rank it up there with top 10 for sure.
Well, at the beginning of the year, I thought Oklahoma State was the best defensive team in the Big 12, but that's since changed. West Virginia, hands down, a great defense. Unfortunately, Ron, their offensive production doesn't meet the standard of their defense. And here's the other thing. West Virginia has been very good at home, Ron. I don't know if you have that records in front of you, but I believe they're 5-0 at home and not so good on the road. On the other hand, you brought up Iowa State. Big win last week, clinched a spot in the Big 12 championship game, if I'm not mistaken, Even if they lose this game, they're still in the Big 12 championship game. So in this line, to me, when I look at it, Iowa State has been absolutely rolling of late. And they're only a 7-point home favorite against a West Virginia team. Yes, they have a great defense, but they're not good on the road. To me, that 0-3 on the road. So that indicates to me that the books are saying, you know what, West Virginia has a lot more to play for here, and Iowa State might be a little bit complacent.
No, you're right. And if I look at their road games, at Oklahoma State, 27-13, at Texas Tech, 34-27, a game they should have won, and then 17-13 against Texas. So you're right. Not a good, a little bit of Lindy roughing them right there,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
Poor Lindy. They were just, but you look at, absolutely. Look at this, Ross. On offense, they're only scoring 17 points on offense on the road compared to 36 at home. So good call on you right there. So be careful. You know what? And this
is a game I'm probably going to stay away from for the reasons because there's so much conflicting info, right, Ron?
Yep.
Yeah, you don't know what Iowa State's going to bring to the table here. You know what I mean? It's they pretty much accomplish their goal. On the other hand, it's senior day. Okay, so that usually sparks a lot of emotion, right? So.
And you're absolutely right. And then they're steamrolling right now. And the one thing I do know, once you get past the midpoint of the season, and you're running, when your team's running on all cylinders, and when you're just confident knowing that as a coach, when you enter a game and you can just win the game with your defense, or you don't even you put up 10 points, or just you're going to hold the opponent down to 10 points. I think that's what Iowa State feels right now, that they're in that zone as a football team that they can play anybody right now. They would feel up really good.
And they're very balanced offensively and defensively, Ron. They're a lot better than people give them credit for on defense as well. They don't have the statistics defensively that West Virginia has, but they're much better offensively. So it balances itself out. They're a tough out, Ron.
Yep. All right. We'll turn our attention a bit to the NFL, give some NFL some love. Not for long if we don't, right? And Jerry Glanville would say, this game here today, like we said, opened up at 1. Like this, because of the changes, it doesn't show the -1, so it's 10.5. We went through that. The Raiders right now, man, the Raiders struggling on the road.
Yeah.
7.5 move up to 8.5. I think this is a dangerous spot here for the Raiders. Against the Jets, but the Jets, man, I thought they were the team, the spot last week against Miami. Against a Miami team who doesn't produce a lot of offense, but this Raider team got embarrassed last week, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, they lost 43-6 at Atlanta, who went into that game with a 3-7 record. The Raiders were 6-4 at the time, and that really hurt that loss really hurt their playoff chances, Ron. In a conference where it looks like you're going to have to win at least 10 games to qualify. So, look, no excuses here. They're playing the 0-11 Jets. Like you said, I was with you last week, Ron. I took the Jets as well. And I thought that was a prime opportunity for them to play a Miami team who, in my estimation, even though I gave them high accolades at the beginning of the year, when you start, I looked at them as a dangerous dog. They're now starting to become road favorites, and the Jets laid an egg.
Yeah. Miami minus 10.5 and open up. Now it's at 11.5. So money, you know what? I remember, years of following the NFL. There's always that team where you say, okay, how do they keep winning and how do they keep covering? But all they do is cover and win. It's like, it's almost to this point now. It's like, if you can't beat them, join them type thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, remember 2 weeks ago too, they did lose at Denver as a 4.5-point favorite, but, Cincinnati now without their star rookie quarterback, Joe Burrow, still has some offensive weapons there in Cincinnati. I think the line is a little bit high. Now we're talking about a double-digit favorite for Miami. Not sure this is a game I would use, but I certainly wouldn't lay that number.
Yeah, I agree. Jacksonville, Minnesota. Minnesota, man, I don't know what they did last weekend, but they came back.
Consistency.
Yeah, just like they beat Green Bay. And then, they played Jackson. Was it Jacksonville they played? No, they're playing
No,
Jacksonville
they're
this
playing
weekend.
Jacksonville this week. They won 28-27.
Carolina, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now they're 8.5. Now it's got a 9.5. But Jacksonville's been playing some really good football since that Green Bay game.
Yeah.
Even though they're not getting the wins, but they're getting the covers.
Yeah.
In fact, I would go look at my streaks here. I gotta here I'm just gonna bring this over here. So if you go to tools and you go to streak catcher or streak tracker, we take a look at some of the streaks in the NFL. And I thought I saw Jacksonville as an ATS. No, maybe not. Oh, wait a minute. No. New Orleans, 4 ATS. Buffalo, 3 ATS. Houston, 3 ATS. Jacksonville, 10-game losing streak right here.
They opened up with a win against Indy, and they've lost 10 straight since.
Yeah. Chicago, that's hard to figure out. 5 straight losses now for the Bears. They don't every week now say, okay, who wants to be the offensive play caller?
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, what really let them down at Green Bay last week was the poor performance by their usually stout defense. So they're finding ways to fail.
And yeah, this is a dangerous line, 9.5. I don't know if I trust the Vikings at 9.5 against a Jacksonville team. Let me go bring up that game real quick.
And again, you're asking a really bad team to do good things for you in Jacksonville.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road beside.
But look at their, okay, so the Steelers, they got waxed 24-20, 27-25, 10-point loss here to the Chargers. It's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde syndrome going on in Jacksonville. Cleveland. Now this game line here, this is not 1.5. This line here is -6. I don't understand why it's so high. Unless something on the Cleveland that we don't know about. There's let me see here. Where's this line on Cleveland? Yeah, there. Where is it? Okay, -6 and 54 is the total.
So Tennessee is -6.
Yeah, Tennessee is -6. So they opened up at 5.5, just to say -6. But man, Cleveland. Man, you said it since the beginning of the year they'd be a team that's going to make the playoffs, and you're dead on with that right there.
Yeah. Again, they're stepping up in class here. Tennessee, a hard team to gauge. I mean, just when you start to count them out, they come up with that effort they did last week at Indy that they now seize control of the lead in the division with that big win. And not only a big win, they dominated that game, Ron, which shocked me. Especially what shocked me is how well they moved the ball on that stout Indy defense. Derrick Henry coming off a monster game. I would have an inclination to look for a reason to use the dog in this situation. Myles Garrett's going to return this week for Cleveland. That will boost their defensive line. Again, if it depends on if you could at least neutralize Derrick Henry to a degree, how well you do against Tennessee.
Yeah, no, the run game for Tennessee is man, when it's running on all cylinders, it's probably one of the best in the league, right?
Yeah, then it opens up your passing game, right? And then play action pass is more effective. So, and again, Tennessee's issue isn't when they have the lead, Ron. When they're on, it's when they fall behind.
Yeah.
So,
and they're missing some O-line on that Tennessee Titan O-line too. Yep. Was it Luan?
Yep. He's out for the year, I believe.
Yeah, that's a big loss for the Titans right there. Yeah. But it's next man up.
Next man up, Ron.
Yeah, that's Indianapolis taking on Houston. Now this is gonna be a big bounce back game for the Colts on the road against the Texans. This is gonna be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, Houston's much better than their 4-7 record indicates. Maybe not defensively, Ron. But this is an offense that really still has a lot of weapons, although they did lose Will Fuller this week, I believe, he tested positive for a controlled substance that's banned by the NFL. So that's a big loss. He's a deep threat. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this game.
And the thing that also with Houston, man, the schedule maker didn't do many favors to begin the year, right?
Yeah. They had a very, very tough start to schedule for the start of the year.
It's almost not even fair. I think it's like playing Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I think
first 6 games in particular were off the charts tough.
Yeah, they drew the short straw for sure at the beginning of the year, right? Philadelphia, Green Bay. Now Packers coming off that blowout win against the Bears. Now they got the Eagles. Eagles are, turnover machine.
Yeah.
But, I know one people like the Eagles right now is all the Monday night guys who had them on Monday night.
Well, it was
like Chip.
Again, that brings me to this. Okay, here's my rant of the day.
Let me get a coffee.
I don't understand this philosophy on when you go for two and when you don't go for two in the NFL. Okay. I mean, Philadelphia scores the opening, they're down 14-0. They score a touchdown. They go for two. Now, Doug Peterson's known for that. However, they get that Hail Mary pass at the end of the game. That closes the gap to 8 points. Now you kick the extra point, you're down one score. Okay. He goes for two. He makes it. But hypothetically, Ron, think about this. If you don't make that two, you're down 8. Now I understand in some people's mind it's a 2-score game, but see, I differ in that regard. To me, that's a 2-score game. Because not only do you have to score the touchdown, the probability of succeeding on an extra point far outweighs the probability of making a 2-point conversion. So I don't understand the philosophy there. And I'll go back to that example I've said many times, okay? And I've seen this time and time again. I just think analytics are way off base, and we're putting way too much emphasis in analytics in this game. Going forward on 4th down on your own 30 early in the game, stuff like that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It's something you would have never seen years ago, but because these young guys come in with these brilliant analytics, some of these coaches, especially the younger coaches, are following it. Last year I'm at a Baltimore game, and Buffalo's down 15 points. They score a touchdown with 6 minutes to go, and they narrow the gap to 9. Now, what do? You kick the extra point. You make it an 8-point game. It's a whole different scenario than what I just described with Philadelphia, because if you go for two and you miss, you're talking about 6 minutes left against a great defense, and you have to score twice. Okay. What is he? McDermott goes for two and he makes it. Okay. And then I'm listening to a post-game show on the way home, and these young guys that do the post-game show are trying to say anybody who thinks they shouldn't have went for two in that situation is a fossil and old school and well behind the times. Well, you know what? Kiss my ass. The bottom line is this. If you miss that 2-point conversion, you're down 9. Not only do you have to score twice, what do you think that does to the psyche of your team? All of a sudden, now you feel like, man, we scored. We could have been down 1 score. Now we got to score twice again in 6 minutes. We've had a hard time scoring the whole game. I don't know.
Hey, hit the pause button there on your beta machine there, Ross. Hang on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, that's my thought for today.
Yeah. No, you know what? Here's the thing, and here's my play devil's advocate on that 4th down situation you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're in a low scoring game and you're saying to yourself, okay, the defenses right now are, back and forth. It's a field position game. Now, if we kick a field goal, we lose our field position here. Now, because we're going to have to kick off, and then, they're getting, instead of getting the ball on the, if we don't make the 4th down, they're going to get it on the 2-yard line, wherever they were. Right. And then they got to go 98 yards. But if you don't kick the field goal and you don't make it, then you're giving up 3 points. But you're also
right there.
You're still keeping your field position. And to me,
stop right there, please. I was referring to going for it on your own 30 with not on the opposing 30. So I get what you're saying.
Oh, your own 30.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Just to make that clear.
Yeah.
I do agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
The point is well taken. But I'm talking about some of these moves you see these coaches make in recent weeks. They're going for it on 4th and less than a yard from their own 30 early in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, that's you're playing Russian roulette right there, because now, you got to think of the outcomes here, right? Okay, so you don't make it, you give them the ball, then you can either stop them, they get a touchdown, or they get a field goal. But yeah, I don't know what the thought process.
I didn't mean to be rude, but I wanted.
That's okay. No, I hear you.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at just quickly the offensive defensive point ranking going into this weekend. This one thing I like to do here just to see where teams stand from an offense and defense point of view. And again, if you're watching this show for the first time, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are days we look it over. We don't break down the games because then we got nothing to do on Thursdays and Fridays, right? And we got to let things play out during the week. And this is where normally handicappers do their homework. And I really, when we do our Tuesdays and Wednesday shows and we look at the lines, we look at the matchups, I start gathering information, getting, digging into your train of thought. Same thing with the people in the watching on the chat. And Alan Miles laughing at you, Ross. He goes, I agree 1,000%.
Attaboy, Alan.
Yeah.
He's probably in our age group. That's why.
Yeah.
But even if he's not, you're a smart man.
All right. So Detroit, 22nd ranked offense. Again, man, this is going to be a fun game to watch, right? Detroit, Chicago on offense against the 31st ranked Lions defense against the eighth ranked Bears defense. No Patricia this week, so maybe the players are going to be a little bit.
Boy, did you see all those players speaking out against Patricia once he got fired?
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. It's if you want to know how popular you were, just watch Twitter or something right now.
But usually
when you're trending on Twitter, when you're fired, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. But usually it's very rare when an NFL coach gets fired, you see that kind of negative response immediately. Usually you'll hear some comments in the off season, but it's quite apparent he was not well liked in that locker room.
Well, hey, we've all been there, right? We've all been in a workplace where it was toxic and you just can't say nothing because you want to hold on to your job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's what comes to my mind. It's like, man, it must have been a toxic scene over there for those guys to, and go out on a limb and put a name on it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. The Saints, 5th ranked offense against the Atlanta Falcons, 11th ranked offense. The Saints, this surprised me a bit. 5th ranked defense.
Yeah.
Surprised and not surprised, to me, because the Saints in the previous years, they weren't really known for their defense. It was that offense. But now the defense is, look at this, 5-5 when you look at the averages, the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're looking at their philosophy on offense without Drew Brees in there, and with Taysom Hill as their quarterback, Ron, they're playing it safe. You know what I mean? They're playing it safe. And what they're doing is trusting their defense with their offensive philosophy right now until Drew Brees gets back, not being as aggressive. This is a dangerous spot for me because Atlanta coming off that big win last week where they just completely blew out Las Vegas 43-6 and forced 5 turnovers in that game. Divisional matchup and a defense that's been improving a bit as the season progressed.
The Raiders taking on the Jets. Now, are the Raiders making the playoffs right now, or are they still on the outside?
No, they're on the outside looking in.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, anytime you got a 28 ranked defense, that's a red flag. And
no, they're not out of it. I mean, they're 6-5, right? But again, in my estimation, and I'm feel strongly when I say that it's going to take, even though you got the additional team going as a wild card this year, it's going to take 10 wins in the AFC to make the playoffs. That's just my personal feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Bengals taking on the Dolphins, 26th ranked on offense. Now you can throw that out because no Burrow, so that there goes all your production on offense. 22 on defense, up against the 2nd ranked defense in the league in the Miami Dolphins, who are only giving up 18.6 points against. Pretty impressive.
Absolutely impressive. Brian Flores, again, I was high on him before the season started, and he's garnered nothing short of more respect from me.
Here's one thing that surprises me. Mike Zimmer defense ranked 27th in the league, giving up 27.7 points for, but the shells are pretty empty right now in Minnesota when compared to last year, right?
Right, exactly. They lost a lot of players from their defense a season ago, and it's going to take time to build that unit back up.
To me, it reminds me of New England trying to rebuild that offense without Tom Brady, right? It's almost a similar situation. The Cleveland Browns, 18th ranked offense, a little high. I thought it'd be more of a top 10 offense considering the season they're having, and only ranked 21st on defense. Yeah. Man, you thought with all those monsoon games there at Cleveland Stadium the last 4 weeks that the points against would be a little bit lower, but they're in tough this week against the 6th ranked offense in the Titans.
again, Cleveland, to me, Nick Chubb is back. 2 games back, over 100 yards in both
Wow.
contests rushing. And you'd be hard pressed. I know Derrick Henry's a terrific back, but you'd be hard pressed. The combination, the 1-2 punch of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt is the best in the NFL when it comes to top 2 running backs,
Yeah.
meaning top 2 running backs on the depth chart, Ron. Does that
Reminds you
make
of Thunder
sense?
Lightning when New Orleans
Yeah.
had that good tandem, right? Like I always
Yeah.
say, a good running game. You need Batman, needs Robin.
Yeah.
Indianapolis. Here's the thing with Indy. Okay, they got tough day at the office last weekend, but it's not a team that they lost. They know they can beat because they beat them
Yeah.
at home on a Thursday night. So you got to put that loss behind you and now focus on Houston. And Houston, a 17th ranked offense, 23 ranked defense.
Couple wins in a row for Houston, if I'm not mistaken. And these are the types of games that Derrick Henry, Phillip Rivers thrives in. Again, he really is very good at exposing vulnerable defenses, and Houston certainly fits in that category.
Danny Dimes. I don't know if he's going to play for the Giants this weekend. I don't know how serious that.
No, he's out.
He's
He's
out, eh?
definitely out. Yeah.
Okay. It's too bad because, man, he was really coming on
Yeah,
here.
I liked him, and I know you did too, Ron. I
Yeah.
thought he did take a lot of heat, but we both agreed that, look, it was undue. And the bottom line is, if he wasn't playing in the New York media market, and he was playing in somewhere else, he would not have taken the kind of heat he did. He had a good rookie year, other than the 10 lost fumbles. If you look at his pass completion rate, his touchdown to interception ratios, they were very good. You could do a lot worse than Colt McCoy as a backup, though, Ron. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, this, in any event, this is going to be a game the offense does have to produce. What I'm impressed with, Ron, is the Giants' running game since they lost Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Wayne Gallman has really been running hard.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
running angry, and he's been real effective. And I'm really impressed with Joe Judge, the head coach of the New York Giants, first-year head coach coming over from New England, where he was a special teams coordinator. And right now, the Giants at 4-7 are first place in the NFC East, Ron.
Yeah. 9th ranked defense, too, only giving up 23
Yeah.
points a game. So they get their act together on offense. They probably win a few more of those games, right?
Yeah, sure.
Here's the thing. The Giants taking on the Seahawks this weekend. Seahawks, pretenders or contenders?
I would have to say pretenders, because I'm not sold on their defense, and let's not get carried away with them holding their opponent to less than 300 yards in their previous game, because their opponent in that game is not a good offensive team. So until they show me they could stop teams consistently on defense, and when I say stop teams, they don't need to be holding teams around 300 yards a game. If they could get themselves in a position, Ron, where they consistently could hold teams around 350 yards a game, they're going to be real tough. But I mean, you look at some of the games they played this year, giving up so many points and so many yards. I can't take them seriously as a contender until they improve that part of their game.
The LA Rams, they got caught in a bad, I was on San Francisco this weekend, and I just thought the Rams, bad scheduling for them
Yeah.
last week. Monday night game, travel, get ready for a division opponent. This Rams, the defense again, Jared Goff is just a bit inconsistent, but 19th ranked offense, 4th ranked Rams. This Rams, when they want to play football, great head coach. They're a dangerous team that could probably cause some damage in the playoffs. Probably a team you don't
Yeah,
want to play.
I agree, Ron. The running game's effective. They got a good quarterback in Jared Goff, and their defense very underrated. Ron, if I could bother you for 1 second to look up Arizona as a home underdog, I'm just curious, because for whatever reason, I want to know how Arizona does as a home underdog over the last 10 years, for example. If I recall right, they're pretty good in this situation.
Last 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your
Yeah.
database.
Yeah, I can go 10 years.
All right.
21 and 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then if you want to break that down to I'm wondering how they do as a home underdog against a division.
Versus the division full.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go down here. Yeah, they're going to be in tough this weekend. 8-7.
Yeah, and they're not quite as good in the division. Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, if still good, 21-14, you're talking about 60% over the last 10 years of home underdog. And I'm pretty sure that if you did look within the parameter of an underdog of 3 or greater, they're going to be even better in that situation, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But I'm not saying you have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't think I can do 3 or greater.
Yeah, I
or
can,
actually,
but let's
might be able to. Home underdog, 3 or more, right? Home underdog, 3 or more. 3 or more. 6-6.
No, actually, no. Okay, so they're actually better when you get into the lower half, 7 or less, maybe
7 or less.
7 or 7 or less.
7-4.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, in any event, they're a decent. They've been historically a good home underdog. So,
yeah.
And this version of the Arizona Cardinals is much better than the teams in the past that we just searched on. But again, this is an Arizona team's lost 3 out of the last 4 around. If not for the fact that DeAndre Hopkins made that miracle catch at the end of the Buffalo game, we'd be looking at a team entering this game on a 4-game losing streak.
Oh, exactly. And that's what I was going to bring up right here. 6-5 on the year, 3-7-1 to the under. Taking a look at their last couple of games against New England, 2017, 28-21 to the Seahawks. Buffalo, a game that you just said that should have lost. Miami had, this, and look at this, 37-34. Yeah. The last 5 games have been all 3 points. Let me see here. 2, 3. Yeah. 7. Okay. 6, 7 points.
3-7-1 to the under, but I think at home they're playing to the over, Ron, if I'm not mistaken.
3-2 to the over.
Okay.
Depending on the line too, right?
Yeah, because they're 5-0 under on the road. So.
All right. Patriots taking on the Chargers. New England, flexing a bit of muscle the last couple of weeks, taking on the Chargers who struggled in Buffalo. But they get that a touchdown at the end there. They probably cover the spread like we thought they would. But again, it's not been a good year for the Chargers luck wise.
Anthony Lynn, I don't know if you watched the end of that game, but his time management at the end of the game was horrible.
Yeah.
And he's been guilty of that consistently. I like Anthony Lynn. He's a good coach. But look, like you said a million times, Ron, when you're a head coach, you're a CEO, right?
Yep.
You delegate your duties to your offensive, defensive coordinators and get out of the way. Your job is to make sure you use timeouts when you should. Okay. Number 2, you should be on top of when you should challenge a play when it comes to video review and other things that when you're overseeing a whole operation. If you're not doing that well, which he's not, then, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And, you're right. The CEO, here's another example of a Matt Nagy situation in Philly where Peterson now is debating, giving up the play calling. It's just, I said it since day one, and we even talked about it in our preview show in July. I don't know how these guys can be a head coach and an offense coordinator at the same time. It's just so time demanding, and you lose focus on your defense. And then your defense gets pissed off because they think the head coach is showing more favoritism to the offense because he's calling the offense. It's just you can't wear both hats. You're either a head coach or you're an OC, and you got to give up one. And it's I don't know how they can do it in the NFL. But to me, those are guys who they're control freaks. They want to be in control.
Yep. What comes to mind is when Wade Phillips was the defensive coordinator of the Rams up until this year, and Sean McVay had so much confidence in him running the defense. You would see him when the opposition had the ball sitting on the bench by himself, looking at his offensive play chart.
Yeah.
And it's like he had not even worrying about what's going on. I don't know. You're right, Ron.
No, I just from experience, I did it for a few years, and you're out there talking the offense, and then you got the guys yelling at you, coach, take the penalty or what? And then you don't know what's going
Yeah,
on because you're trying to get
exactly.
things working on offense, and you got a rough in the passer call here, or pass interference or a holding, and you're like, well, okay, what happened? Because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying to fix the
And
thing on
that's a
offense.
part. That's another part of the decision making I failed to bring up. Is you're right, Ron. The ability to decline or take a penalty. I mean,
Yep.
sometimes those are crucial decisions.
Denver ranked 31st, and they're going to be hopefully they have some quarterbacks this week, but it's going to be a
Yeah.
tough spot against the number
Look,
two.
and I'm ready to send Ron Raymond there. He hasn't played quarterback for 30 years.
Put
I
me in,
mean,
coach. I'm ready, man.
yeah, there you go. They threw 9 passes last week, completed 1, and 2 were interceptions. It was not a good moment for the NFL when all 3 quarterbacks went down for Denver with COVID and they had nothing in reserve. Did you see what Buffalo did this week, by the way? They took Jake Fromm, their number 3 guy, and said, look, sorry, don't take it personally, but we're going to have you operate virtually right now
Yeah.
because God forbid we lose both our Josh Allen and Matt Barkley. We need somebody healthy. We don't want to fall into a situation like Denver, especially when you're contending for a division title. So
Well,
anyway,
every team in the NFL should be donating something to Denver's favorite charity this week because, like you said, every other team just realize, okay, we're not going to be that team, and we're going to do like what Buffalo did. Washington, Gibson, the running back. Wow, you said it a couple of weeks about week 3. Watch out for this running back. He's solid. Antonio
yeah.
Gibson, right?
Hey, the Washington's defense ain't bad either,
Yeah,
right, Ron?
ranked 7th.
How about Alex Smith, Ron? What a story, huh?
Absolutely great. That's a great feel good. And the best scene was when his wife and kids were at his first game, and it was just funny to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah,
That was awesome.
that was heartwarming, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I wonder what the
Yeah,
total will be in this game, Washington Pittsburgh. The ranked 7th defense against the
yeah.
ranked 1 offense, and
I got to think around 43, maybe. You know what I mean? Somewhere in that area, Ron. I would guess 42 to 44 and a half at the most. We'll see. I mean, a lot's going to have to do with how Pittsburgh comes out of this game health wise. I mean, a lot of things could change if Roethlisberger, God forbid, for the NFL's sake, gets hurt. I mean, that's going to play a big factor as far as it. But if everybody's healthy on both sides, I would say 42 to 43 and a half, Ron.
yeah, that's
Does
where I'm.
that sound reasonable
Yeah,
to you?
yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 43, 44,
Okay.
early line. And then the final game, Buffalo against San Fran in Arizona.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to be playing San Fran right now. They're getting everybody healthy back. The defense is still, a solid defense, ranked 11th. They lose their quarterback. Nick Mullins, he got a big win against the Rams defense. You got to give him credit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And the NFC is much different than the AFC. If you can get the 9 wins, you got a pretty good chance of making it as a wild card. And right now, the 49ers are 5-6, and they're coming off that big win. Like you said, they swept the Rams. Could they put 2 games together in a row, though, Ron? Is right now is something that they've lacked consistency this year in terms of their performances. And a little bit has to do with Garoppolo going down early, but a lot of people would tell you that's not a big deal, and Chip Chirimbus will be one of them if you ask him.
Well,
He does not like Garoppolo.
oh, no way.
No,
Not a big fan.
no, he's
The
not a
Buffalo
big.
Bills on the road against an NFC West division opponent since 1983, 12-9, 12-9-2 against the spread, 17-6 to the over.
Wow.
So the total might be something. And, anytime you get these, it reminds me of the NHL a bit when you get these non-conference games, right? In the NHL, they don't worry about the 2 points as much because it's a different conference. But I wonder if that same mentality works in the NFL.
And the other thing too, Ron, is Buffalo next game is against the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night. They can't afford to look ahead, though, Ron. Yeah, I mean, Miami's right on their heels at 7-4. They do have the tiebreaker as we speak, being 4-0 in the division and having defeated Miami already, and then hosting Miami at the end of the year. It's a little bit of an advantageous position there, but we'll see. This is not going to be an easy game.
No.
San Francisco runs the ball very well,
Yep.
And Buffalo again. I know that a lot of people said, well, they're much better against the run lately. Again, we'll see if it's a close game and a team could stick to the run and not have to abandon the running game, how well they do. And I hope, being a Bills fan, that they step up to the plate. And I don't care how they win this game, just win it. But I anticipate a very tough challenge here against the 49ers.
Yeah, well, we saw what happened in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And Buffalo's got this habit of taking leads and then blowing it. Like they have this little mini meltdown during games.
Yeah.
We've seen that this year, but
It hasn't always resulted in a loss.
yeah,
But you're right, Ron. They have an inability to succeed putting games away. Is
Yeah.
what I think what you're trying to say.
yeah, exactly. If you like finish them right, like
Yeah.
the good teams, they don't, once they get a lead, they don't. Kansas City this weekend had a good lead, but they let that go. Yeah, no, you're right. All right, Ross. Hey, college basketball going today, and I know somebody's pretty hot these days. What do you got going?
Yep. Again, folks, if you missed the beginning of the show, 2-0 day yesterday, won those games by a combined, I covered those games by a combined 51 points, 7-2 to start the year in college basketball. I have 3 selections up, all in the same package tonight at rbwins.com. 7-2 to start the year. My college basketball 10-star top plays. I don't have any of those tonight, Ron, but something to keep an eye on going forward. 3-0 this year, dating back to last year. 8-0 with my last 8 college basketball 10-star top plays, and going even further beyond that, Ron, 39-23 with my last 62, which is good for 63%. That's rbwins.com. You could also get my football selections this week by going to Ron's site, atsstats.com, or my site, rbwins.com.
Absolutely. You can get Ross's football picks, Chips picks, and the Big Ragu all here at atsstats.com. And if you're interested in the Raymond Report, we got a free tip sheet. Also, we do horse racing.
Yeah.
The greatest 2 minutes in sports. We cover that. We got a nice tip sheet here, and you can get that for free. Today's free tip sheet is Gulfstream Park. Today's the opening day of Gulfstream for the winter run. So you can get that at atsstats.com. All right, Ross the Boss. That's what the Big Ragu calls you, Ross the Boss. Yeah, he goes, that's his new nickname. I'm going to call him Ross the Boss.
He's my man. We got to do a show together.
Absolutely.
He brought that up to me yesterday on Facebook, and I would look forward to that.
Awesome. All right, Ross, tomorrow's college football and then NFL football Friday on this Friday. Looking forward to that. For Ross Benjamin, I'm Ron Raymond. This was the Raymond Report. Hump Day Wednesday, December 2nd. Folks, have yourself a great rest of your day. As always, shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.